Right, and we're moving. Well, firstly, I'd just like to welcome you watching and listening to this. I think the three most important things in this life is discovering who you are, understanding what a great life looks like to you, and knowing how to go and get it and having the courage to do so. So this project has been created with the intention of providing a very real and trustworthy guide to hopefully discovering exactly that. Now, I absolutely do not have the answers, so I'd very much like to invite anyone interested in joining me on this journey to basically figure it out. So in this first stage, we speak to a guy called Shulman. So I think Doug is a very good person and a very good place to start this journey off with, because he's living a life that he genuinely enjoys, and his life is centered around doing things that he actually wants to do. So alongside some other interesting parts in his life, Doug's a football commentator for the BBC, and he has been for the past 14 years. I think Doug is someone that we can learn a lot from, so let's see how we go. Right, and we're moving. Doug Shulman, welcome to Ascenthia.
Yeah, good morning, Sam, or evening for you. Lovely backdrop you've got on your camera there. Beautiful.
Yeah, thank you very much. So, yeah, as you know, this is the first episode of this podcast, and it's really the first stage of a journey. It's a continuous, evolving, hopefully improving journey, a journey that really resembles the ultimate journey of life, I think, to hopefully discover who you are, understand what a great life looks like to you, and knowing how to go and get it and having the courage to do so. Some people may join this journey for a stage, half a stage, or many, but hopefully benefit from it. Doug, I think you're someone that lives a pretty good life. I think you've got what you love, your passions, fulfillment, all integrated into your life, and I think you've curated your life in such a way that I find inspiring. So I'm really happy and grateful to be talking to you today, and also to start this journey off with you. So thank you for being here today, and thank you for your openness to it.
That's all right. No worries. I've thought a lot about it in the kind of build up, because you the day to day you live your life and you do things that you do and what you've always done, or perhaps new things that evolve, but there's very little time that you actually sit back and think about it. So it's been in the build up to this, it's been a nice kind of thought provoking sort of process for me, so I'm looking forward to discussing it.
Good stuff. So it's the off season right now. Apart from a well-earned break, what does that look like to a BBC commentator and pundit?
Well, the break is the big thing, really. But both, well, more mentally than physically, really, Sam. I think it's a period in your life that's kind of 8 or 9 months, the football season. So for those that are not familiar with the UK football season, starts at the beginning of August and ends around about the beginning of May, and if you're successful, move into the playoffs, and the season could be extended a little further, or if you're a bit higher up the football pyramid, you may end up in the Champions League, which obviously was a game that we all watched last night, so end of May, so it can trudge on for quite some time, but yeah, luckily for me, the U's, Cambridge United, that is, their season concluded at the beginning of May, thankfully, with promotion. So I think really that the moment the season ends that's when your downtime kind of starts, and that's when you kind of realise exactly how much you kind of put into a season. There's a lot that there is to deal with on a kind of mental perspective in terms of match preparation in your own mind, and it's only when you stop and you sit and you kind of reflect and you down tools a little bit and you don't get up at ridiculous hours on a Saturday morning and drive to far-flung places in the country, or even if it's just a home game, it's still 4 or 5, 6 hours out of your day. So you don't really realise how much you need that mental break until it actually happens. So I really kind of take the most I can from the kind of summer break. I have a full weekend back because I've got a day job as well, so effectively during the football season, Sunday is my only non-working day, really. So you just have to make the most of the 2.5 months or whatever it is, to just get a little bit of your relaxation side of your life back, really, and just to kind of do a bit of kind of thinking, assessing your own mind, what's gone on the previous season, good things that have happened, not so good things that have happened, things that you might want to improve on next year, and silly stuff like updating statistics and databases, which I've, funnily enough, been doing a little bit of this morning, and that is actually preparation for next season. But to not have the complexity, which it is sometimes, and the energy taken up by having to cover games every single Saturday and during the week as well, is something that you have to kind of embrace. If you don't, then all of a sudden you're back on the you're back in the driving seat and going off to all manner of places, and you haven't really had that kind of mental wind down. So I make sure I have plenty of that, and it's just a time to kind of reflect, recharge the batteries, and it's a season, regardless of how you're involved at any level, and you'll know this, Sam, having played the game yourself. Regardless of whether you're playing, you're coaching, you're part of the press, or you're a supporter, it's all consuming throughout a season, whatever level you're on. If you're in that stadium at 3 o'clock on a Saturday or 7:45 on a Tuesday, or different days of the week with the TV schedules these days, it really is all consuming. It's very energy sapping mentally, and so you just need that little bit of time out. So it's good to have that bit of downtime, which I'm enjoying at the moment.
Speaking of reflection, how do you look back on the season just gone? I mean, from the outside, it looks like it was a season and a moment, especially a few weeks ago at Crewe, that kind of really highlights the reason why you do what you do. So how do you reflect on the season just gone?
I mean, obviously, ultimately, it was brilliant. I mean, it's the first time that the club have bounced back from a relegation season, first time of asking in their entire history, which is 120 odd years, whatever it is these days. So. It was a pretty remarkable kind of feat. But the football season's an odd one, because you literally have no idea. You can have seen the club that you're following or you support build what they think is a really good squad, and all the pieces you think are in place, and it can be an absolute disaster, as it was for the U's last season. But sometimes you get the really good side of that, where things develop and progress, and as the season goes on, you realise something a little bit more special is happening, or there's a little bit more edge to what's going on the pitch, and all of a sudden you look round in the stands and see it full every single week, and the side are playing good football, not losing games of football, scoring plenty of goals, not quite enough for the U's at times, but scoring plenty of goals, keeping lots of clean sheets, and you just get a sense that you're on a journey with them, regardless of in what capacity it is, that could end up ultimately successful. And to cover that, for me anyway, to cover that throughout a promotion season was absolutely brilliant. It's the third in 14 years as well in terms of promotions that they've achieved. So you look back and you think, that was pretty special. From day one to the day that they achieved promotion, it was a fantastic journey, and you watched them progress and develop and get better and better as time went by. And it was, in some senses, an easy season from a press perspective, because when things are going well, everything's a little bit easier. It's when you get the kind of the periods where things aren't going so well that it can be really, really challenging. So you have to kind of just embrace seasons as one which we just experienced, and just to enjoy it for every single second you can, because the football, like any sport, is just a brilliant way to take yourself out of the day-to-day and put yourself in an environment where everyone's all in. Everyone has eyes on the pitch, what's going on. If it's not a match day, what else is going on at the club? It's just something that you really need to embrace, because those kind of seasons don't come along that often, really, to be honest. And to be a part of it was really special, to be honest, and for everyone, for everyone in the stands, all the players, just a fantastic experience, and just to ride that wave with them was it's a pretty unique season, really, to be honest, Sam. You look back and it's one that you'll look back on really, really fondly. Some promotions mean a little bit more than others, but promotion is promotion, and you just have to kind of embrace that, because who knows what happens next season? They might get relegated again. I hope not, but yeah, it was a really, really enjoyable one, and I'm really pleased for so many people on many levels. Say from a supporter perspective, I mean, to spend all the money that you do, travelling all over the country to watch your team, and it's you invest so much from a time perspective, mental energy and money as well, and for at the end of it to watch the club that you follow in achieve what they have is fantastic. And from us, from a press perspective, it was a brilliant season, some great content for us, both on a match day and on an off match day, in press conferences, etc. It was just brilliant to enjoy the ride with them.
Yeah, I mean, I could certainly feel the tension from here, I think, in the last few weeks of the season, especially. And of course, that, I think you've, as we'll get to in a moment, for you especially, you've obviously got a very close connection with the club. So I'm sure that adds an extra layer to it, which, I mean, we'll sort of move on to that now. So I want to kind of zoom out. I want to go right back to the start with you, Doug. And how did your love of football start in general?
Yeah, you're going back quite a long way there. I'm going to show my age here now. So, but for me, football, crikey. I mean, I remember playing football at primary school, and with mates over at the park after school, and just kicking a ball around and thinking, this is exciting. I like this. This is good. I like kicking the round thing into the net, and it's just that kind of buzz that some people get and some people don't. And I remember listening to football as a youngster as well. We're talking about kind of the mid 70s here, so we're talking from 75, 76 onwards, where I started listening to football on the radio. I mean, it's bizarre now to imagine watching football once a season. The FA Cup, that was the only game that was on TV. You might get the League Cup final, but more often than not, that was on the radio, and you had to listen into what in those days was Radio 2. All football was on Radio 2, not 5 Live, which simply didn't exist in those days. So I used to listen to a bit of football on the radio with my dad. So John Motson was the main commentator on BBC at that point, and obviously he's only just retired, so it just shows what sort of career he's had. And then it kind of got to the point where I'd listen to part of a game. And I'd have to go after bed because I was only young at the time. I used to take my radio up to bed with me and stick it on the pillow and listen to John Motson. And I remember listening to League Cup ties and the League Cup final in 76, 77 at Everton, Aston Villa, and being absolutely captivated by John Motson, the way he delivered a match into your home. You almost felt like you were there. So that's when it really first started for me, really. And then I was in the school team, and that happened throughout my schooling, really. I was always in the school team, not generally always in the A team, but B team, and kicked the ball around, but always kind of really enjoyed it. And I think, it's just something that's always kind of lived with me, to be honest. The buzz of football, whether you're playing, covering a game, listening to it on the radio, watching on the TV, you just get that kind of buzz, and it never ever goes away. In terms of actually watching football, I didn't go to my first game until kind of early 80s, something like that. And I'd kind of followed it as a youngster. I had a bit of a penchant for Everton. I had a little bit of a penchant for Nottingham Forest at the time, because they had Brian Clough in charge, who was just a man on his own in terms of football management, and how he was just so incredibly successful with a group of players that didn't cost a lot of money, but just the ultimate manager in terms of putting together a collective of players that would go on to be not only good to watch but incredibly successful in Europe and in domestically as well. So he really caught my eye, Brian Clough, in the way that he constructed sides. So I was really captivated by that side of it. But it was actually my dad that took me to my first ever game. So it was Haverhill Rovers, who were, I guess, well, you're talking lower league football, east of England football. And we used to go along occasionally and watch the games. And it wasn't a particularly great standard of football, but at that time, it was live football. And it didn't really matter. There was a pitch, 2 goals and 22 players, and it was just exciting. And in August 1982, Cambridge United came to play a friendly at Haverhill Rovers, and they beat Haverhill Rovers 10-0. And I thought, well, this lot are pretty special. So I was, I would have been 14 back then, 14 in fact. So I scurried down after the full-time whistle had gone and collected lots of autographs in my autograph book, which I've still got, funnily enough. So I've got all the autographs from Cambridge United players back in the day, and at that particular time they were a Championship side, what was then Division 2. So they were playing at a very, very high level. So you're playing teams like Sunderland, West Ham, Charlton. All sorts of huge clubs in that particular division at the time, and I just thought, well, this lot are pretty special, and they're 20 miles up the road. And I didn't really go to too many games between then and kind of the mid to late 80s. I just used to go along occasionally to watch them play. But yeah, my love for football sort of grew more and more and more, but took it to another level when I started watching it on a live basis. But yeah, lots of really good memories when I was a kid of listening to games on the radio, certainly.
And then in terms of Cambridge United, media, how did that all begin?
God, well, that's it's an interesting story, and I always find these kind of stories really kind of intriguing from every perspective. When anyone speaks about how they got onto a particular career, I always find it really fascinating, the whole sliding doors thing and circumstance and coincidence and just being in the right place at the right time. So when I started watching Cambridge on a regular basis, which was late 80s, when I actually moved to Cambridge, so I was brought up in a small place called Haverhill in Suffolk, and but as soon as I was old enough to, I did a lot of travelling, but I moved to Cambridge, and as soon as I moved to Cambridge, I think literally within the first week of moving to Cambridge, I was up at the Abbey Stadium and starting to watch games on a regular basis, well, in fact, every single game. So yeah, I got to know people and forged a lot of friendships, and within probably a couple of 3 years, 2 years even, just standing behind the goal, just getting to know people, chat with people, and it's amazing how in those situations you sort of gravitate towards certain individuals and not others, and purely just standing on a bit of concrete behind a goal in a shabby football stadium, which it was at the time, you say hello to someone and you look back in 30, 40 years and you think, well, that's incredible in terms of how that journey has unfolded and developed and gone through a massive different change, really. So yeah, it was just really a case of chatting to one or two people. Got chatting to a guy called Mark Johnson, who it turned out was a staunch United fan, well, back to early 70s, late 60s, when Cambridge United weren't even a Football League outfit. So we got to the point where we were going along for games, standing on the same bit of concrete. You just gravitated to that same bit of concrete. I don't know why. You could stand anywhere, but why you gravitate to that one bit of concrete, I don't know. And of course, everyone else is doing the same thing. So you just get chatting to people. And I remember standing there having some pretty good conversations and enjoying the kind of ride. At that point, United were on the up in terms of progressing through the league. So there were terraces on a Saturday that were absolutely rammed full, and this is very often with your dad as well, Sam. We went to a lot of games of football together and got chatting to a lot of people, and I forged friendships that I still have to this day now, which is pretty incredible. But yeah, so the people that I was talking to back then, I bumped into away games, and then all of a sudden you're thinking, well, okay, well, no point in two cars going, why don't we go in one car? So I started travelling with one or two folk, one of them being Mark, and not too long after that he scored a job at Cambridge United as their press officer and programme editor, and he said to me, look, do you fancy writing one or two articles for the matchday programme? So I thought, okay, well, I've never really done that kind of thing before, but I really like writing, always have liked writing. One of my favourite subjects at school was English language, so I loved writing stories. I loved writing full stop. I found that I had not so much a talent for it, but because that sounds a bit big-headed, but I just found it quite easy to write. So I always really, really enjoyed it, and really enjoyed the the detail, the process of starting and finishing a bit of writing, so the subject in terms of how it's born, and then the end product, seeing it in print. And I kind of quite like that aspect of it. So I started writing for the Matchday programme. I've done all sorts of different articles with interviews with players, based around journeys to other football grounds, and telling the tale of how that has unfolded throughout a season and on an individual matchday basis, to writing articles about what I feel about football and certain topical subjects and issues there are in the game. So I ended up doing that for, barring one season, I ended up doing it up until the end of last season, so the 24-25 season. So a good number of years. I haven't got my calculator head on, but it was well over 30 plus years anyway. So, and it's something I really enjoyed, and instantly I had that linkage with media and with the press to an extent. I liked seeing my stuff in print, and it was really nice when people came up and said, "Oh, I read your article, it was really good. I really enjoyed it." And you think, okay, well that's pretty nifty. I like that. After a short while, Mark Johnson had actually left Cambridge United, and he'd scored a job with a local independent radio station, just doing football updates. So he started sitting in the press box, and a couple of years went by, and he scored the job as the commentator for BBC Radio Cambridgeshire. And he did that for a good number of years after leaving Cambridge United. And I guess around about 2007, 2008, I was sat in the pub one evening, as you do after work on a Friday, just enjoying a cool pint and sort of discussing the merits of the week, and had a phone call from Mr. Johnson, and he said, "Look, I need a summariser for tomorrow. I think it was away at Halifax. I need a summariser. Are you going to the game?" I said, "Well, I was kind of umming and ahhing whether to go, but yeah, okay." He said, "Well, I'll pick you up in the morning. We'll have a chat and we'll go from there." So we travelled up. We had a chat about what he wanted from me. I asked him one or two questions in terms of what he wanted me to deliver, and he just said, remember him saying, he said, just pick up the microphone and just enjoy it. Just think about it as being me and you having a chat in the car. He said, but with a live game of football in front of you. That's the key aspect, of course. So yeah, I did it that one time up at Halifax. Enjoyed it. Probably thought I was rubbish in terms of what I'd kind of delivered, but more on that in a bit perhaps. But yeah, it was just something that kind of developed from there. So I was doing it on a casual basis, sort of just standing in when the matchday summariser, co-commentator, part of the commentary team, whatever you want to describe it in terms of terminology, his absence at games become more and more and more. So I ended up filling in and doing a lot more games of football. So over the next couple of 3 years, I ended up probably doing 15, 20 games, whether it was away, whether it was home. And then in 2012, by that point, I'd done a little bit more media-wise. I was still writing for the Matchday programme, but I'd actually co-written a small publication, a book, in conjunction with the National Literacy Trust, which was a really exciting thing to get involved in. So yeah, I did a little bit more in there in terms of writing. So things were kind of ramping up a little bit. I'd opted to make the move to London as well, do a bit of secondary education and go back to college for a little bit, with the aim of perhaps going to university and studying publishing, writing, communication, media, press, etc., etc. I did actually score a job at Middlesex University to get onto a degree course, which I was able to do because of the qualifications that I'd gained after going back to college in my late 20s, early 30s down in London. So, but by 2012, I was offered the gig at BBC Radio Cambridgeshire on a permanent full-time basis, which was a real stepping stone. It was something that I would never have imagined 4 or 5 years earlier. And yeah, you look back on it and you think, well, that's 14, 15 years ago now. Firstly, where's it all gone? But yeah, but what a journey, really.
Yeah, I think there's a few things in there. I mean, I think there's certainly an element of things like this that are very interesting in terms of its sliding doors kind of element, and a lot of it is, when you look back, kind of just how things work out, how they happen, out of your control. But I think there's also a fair bit in there that I think you made happen yourself.
Yeah.
I think perhaps you weren't kind of aware and conscious of it at the time, but you were, you know, following what you did enjoy doing, and that perhaps led you blindly to where you were or where you are at this point. But why do you think people ask you? I mean, there would have been lots of fans, lots of people, lots of mates of people that were involved in the media. I appreciate your modest character may find friction with this question, but what do you think it was about yourself that made somebody want to ask you? Do you think they felt an element of trust towards you, or that they could trust you, or you had a sense of professionalism about you? What do you think it was?
Yeah, you're right. I'm sort of quite sort of modest in some respects, but I have kind of thought about it a little bit more in recent times because partly I've been doing it for so long, and I always ask myself the question, probably wrongly, why do people like what I do? I just think I'm a normal average Joe. I've been an average Joe. I always think throughout my life, you know, during schooling, I was always average. I was never sort of top of the class. I was never bottom of the class. Always average. So I always have this kind of mindset of, well, you know, is someone going to just wake up one morning and think, what the devil are we doing? Why have we got this pillock behind a microphone? Because there's so many other people that could probably do it a little bit better. But then after, as time goes by, you just think, well, I must be doing something right. And I always have this kind of mindset of, I'm just a bit lucky to have been in the right place at the right time. And there is an element of, as in everything in life, you know, fortune in being in the right place at the right time. But at the same time, and this is one that I've had to sort of get quite straight in my head, in that, yes, there is an element of that, but you make those situations happen sometimes by opening yourself up to interaction, to speaking to people, you know, wanting to meet interesting people that are sometimes like-minded, people that you have a rapport with, and I guess I'm lucky in being someone that does like to interact and meet people and discover a little bit more about them, and just enjoy that kind of journey of meeting new people and forging new relationships, really. So yeah, there's an element of that, and there's an element that you think, okay, well, yes, that I've been in the right place at the right time, but, you know, I must have a level of knowledge and talent, experience, whatever you want to call it. I don't like the word talent, because I feel I've had to work really, really hard for it to get to the point where I'm in a good position to be able to do something and deliver something that I'm quite proud of, really. So, yeah, it's a difficult one to evaluate, really, but I guess that, you know, I've always enjoyed interacting with people. I like speaking. I think I'm okay in terms of communication, what I try and deliver, and yeah, I just think it's a mix of being fortunate enough to meet good people, and being fortunate enough to be in a position where, you know, I think what I deliver is okay. If it wasn't, then I would have been booted out the door years ago. I guess it's I suppose it comes back to the English language and being comfortable with it, and always enjoy embracing it, whether it's writing, whether it's speaking about it, and just picking up on, you know, experiences that I've had throughout my life to try and enhance it and make my job and what I do and how I deliver it, you know, better and better as time goes by, really. So yeah, it's an interesting one, because no one likes to blow their own trumpet, me especially. I just think what I do is just, you know, but when you sit and reflect, you think, oh, okay, well, perhaps, you know, I have got some level of aptitude for it, to be in a position where, you know, I've been doing what I've been doing for many, many years now. I don't know if that makes sense, Sam, but
absolutely, yeah, absolutely does. I want to dive into that game at Halifax, because I think this is really important, and I think it's something that's so relatable to everyone, especially when they start something new. You mentioned probably thought I was rubbish, and I think this is a really interesting thing that holds the key for a lot of people to get to the other side of this kind of imposter syndrome that you can often feel, especially when you're in new territory. So I want to kind of really dive into your mind about from when you started. So what your first game, your first set of games, your first week, your first 3 months on the mic for BBC Radio Cambridgeshire, how did you feel about yourself? Was it difficult in terms of within your own mind and confidence and being kind to yourself after mistakes? How do you recollect that period?
I was never kind to myself after mistakes. I think that was a real battle for me, because I get you. We're all we all like to have a level of kind of perfection in whatever we do, whether it's getting up in the morning, whether it's doing your job, whether it's doing anything. Or on a social level, on a professional, on a work level, you always want to do the best you possibly can. And I think we're kind of almost kind of preloaded at times to look at, and it could be the individual you are, but certainly for me, I tend to, if I do something, I look at the negatives before the positives, and I don't know why that is. Whether that's something that you're trying to do to be a perfectionist, and no one ever is a perfectionist. Everyone gets things wrong or doesn't get something quite right, or there's always an element you can improve on. So you're always looking for that kind of perfect performance, regardless of what job you do. So yeah, I beat myself up quite a bit. So I remember my partner was at the time, now my wife Paula. She recorded a couple of the first games that I was involved in, and I listened back, and in my mind I skipped past all the good stuff and focused on all the negatives. I was like, I can't believe I said that, or I can't believe I tripped over that word, and it beat me up a little bit. And then I was thinking, well, if I'm thinking that, what are people listening thinking? So that was really tough. That element of my journey was really, really tough in terms of coming to a point where I was accepting of the fact that A, occasionally I'd make mistakes, and B, just thinking, doesn't really matter. You'll take more notice of it than people listening are. But in my mind's mind, I suppose it comes down to acceptance and people wanting to listen and thinking, he's all right, isn't he? He knows what he's talking about, rather than listening and thinking, he's a bit of an idiot, he doesn't know what he's talking about. And you'll always get an element of that. But yeah, I was always really critical of my own kind of performances, and that imposter syndrome was something that haunted me for quite a while, actually.
Have those voices quieted down or faded away? Because, I mean, you might find this quite amusing, but listening to you on the radio now, it seems almost effortless, you know? It just seems like it comes completely naturally. Is that something that you've got better at? Is it something you manage, or have those voices in your mind just completely evaporated?
Not completely evaporated. It still affects you a little bit occasionally, but it's a very good point, Sam, because you train your mind to be less concerned. I think, but partly because you just think, well, I'm the one holding the microphone. I'll say what I want to say and what I believe, because I've got confidence in what I say. So there's that element of it, and really, as time goes by, like any job, anything you do in life, you get a little bit better at it. So you become more confident. So I think that really, really helps. But yeah, it's something that certainly really beat me up in those kind of early days. I've got one particular story actually that absolutely killed me for quite some time, and myself and Mark went down to Newport one Tuesday or Wednesday evening. I think it was a 12-13 season, 2012-2013. Richard Money had just taken over as the U's Cambridge United head coach, and we went down there, covered the game. United lost the game 6-2. Didn't perform too badly at points in the game, but it ran away with them, and they ended up getting absolutely smashed. Didn't think anything more about it. And on the way home, I looked at the message board, which was a big mistake. But because obviously lots of U's fans had travelled down there, lots had listened in on the radio, and it was just an abysmal night for United. To get smashed 6 goals, whether it's home or away, is pretty embarrassing, really. But all we could do was just cover what was in front of us. So, as I always try to be, very truthful about what I'd seen, and I was absolutely smashed to pieces on the message board, saying that I was over positive, that I didn't call things in the way that things should be called. You know, I was overestimating how well the user played in certain elements of the game, and it absolutely killed me, because I was thinking, right, okay, perhaps I literally don't know what I'm talking about, and I beat myself up. I was having sleepless nights, thinking, I think I better just call this a day, because, you know, it's just not happening. If people were thinking that, what am I doing? You know, I don't want to embarrass myself on live radio. So firstly, I never ever looked at that message board again. Apparently, it's still up and running, but I've never ever looked at it from that one day, because I just thought, I don't need this in my life. I don't need people criticising what I do, and I don't need the stress of having to absorb and digest that information in my mind. I have to kind of deal with it, because it's really, really difficult. I found it really, really challenging from a confidence perspective. If I am a confidence person, I do tend to overanalyze things a lot, but not as much as I used to. So working through that was really, really difficult, and I came out a bit the other side, and I think after a couple of years I just thought, you know what, whatever you do in life, people are going to criticise you. It's too easy to criticise, especially with social media and the world we live in, where it's easy just to sit in front of a keyboard and type a few things out and press send, and 9 times out of 10 the people that do that won't think about what they're actually writing. You know, effectively you're writing something or making comment on someone that you don't really know, other than the voice in the radio. So I just thought, you know what, I just need to remove myself from that and just try and build up my confidence as much as I possibly can. And I just thought, well, you know, as time goes by, you know, I'll get better and better at this, and you know, I don't need those kind of dissenting voices. And you know, I don't want to be too disparaging over, you know, football fans, regardless of what club they're associated with, because you know, they pay lots of money, they have a right to an opinion, but I think it's how you express that opinion. And I think it's just, it's just a little bit of forethought sometimes that people need before they make comments. Everyone's free to criticise, I don't mind that, but when it gets to a sort of personal level, which it did on this occasion, then that sort of crosses the line for me. But I have various kind of mechanisms now where, you know, if people are critical, I look at it and think, okay, fair enough, that's his opinion. I respect that hugely, and as long as it doesn't become personal, then I'll accept it and I'll kind of move on, because that's, you know, differences in life and differences in opinion, you know, A, are important, and B, you know, a part of everyday life really. But in terms of being able to deal with and accept that, took a little bit of time, certainly, little bit of time. But you look at it and you think, you know, you're in a public sort of position. In no other job really is what the job that you do so public. You know, if you go and work in an office, which I do during the day, that's not broadcast live on the TV or the radio. So you're there ready to be criticised in some respects when you trip over a word or you say something that people don't agree with. So it's pretty public what you do, but you just become accepting after a while that's the way it is. And it's quite a challenge really to get your head in that situation, or that headspace where you are accepting and you can deal with those situations. I very often engage with people that have a level of criticism. I engage with them and we have a conversation, and it's great. You get the occasional person that, you know, it becomes very personal with it all, but you just learn to just ignore those individuals after a little while. So an interesting one that I've battled with over the years, but thankfully seem to have got the better of.
Yeah, and I think there's some real truth in the loud minority as well. I think especially in this day and age with social media, there's a real perceived kind of level of noise, and I think the minority of people tend to feel a lot louder, whereas I'm sure that there was, you know, 99% of listeners listening to you at that game at that time were probably saying to each other in the living room, in the kitchen, in the garden, wherever they're listening, oh, this new bloke Doug joined, yeah, he's pretty good, yeah, I quite like listening to him. But they're not necessarily going to leave a message in the group saying, yeah, Doug's pretty good. Like, I think he's started pretty well, like pretty tidy, 7, 8 out of 10. You're not gonna see all of those. You're just gonna see the absolute extremes. But so I think it's a bit deceiving in that sense. But yeah, I think what you're touching on is really important. I think, like I said, the imposter syndrome is so common, and I think it's interesting because it's almost right in a way, because I think your imposter syndrome is basically a lack of trust in yourself to be able to perform at a high level in this new territory, which is kind of right in a way, because you don't have a sample size to base your confidence on. So it is just completely new. So it sounds like you had a bit of a breakthrough moment in that sense. Would you say you were almost forced to improve your personal self-talk based on that kind of like intense criticism that almost kind of in your mind knocked you be like, actually hang on, like you kind of could have gone one or two ways in that point, and thankfully you chose to stay positive and be like, no, actually there's a reason why I'm sat in this chair, there's a reason why I'm doing this. Do you feel like from that moment you almost you sort of had a word with yourself and you're like, no, actually, I've got this. I need to be a bit kinder to myself, perhaps.
Yeah, sorry, before I answer that, I'm just going to put my power supply in because my battery's going to run out, Sam. 2 seconds.
Go for it.
There we go. The imposter syndrome is a really interesting. I doubt there are many people out there, if anyone at all, that doesn't suffer from it. If you don't suffer from it, you must be ultra confident and have a massive belief in your own abilities. I think it's important to evaluate your own performance and your own sort of being on a regular basis, but periodically. Just how can you improve yourself as a person? How can you improve yourself as an individual, or if you're in a particular profession, how can you do that? You should always be striving, as I said a little earlier, to be a little bit better. To be a little bit better at what you do. It doesn't have to be massive changes, but just tweak and have that personal sort of self-assessment, as it were. And yeah, you're right. That was a real kind of turning point for me, that particular day. And it was fairly early on in my career, really, in terms of media and holding a microphone. But I think at the end of that season, I thought, well, what way is this going to go? Is it going to be the case of the BBC say to me, that's it, thanks very much, cheers for what you've done, see you later kind of thing. But I had a catch up with the guy that was head of BBC Sport for Cambridgeshire at that particular moment in time, Nick Fairbairn, who ended up going to work for Cambridge United, and in fact was a commentator himself for Peterborough United, who we share the local BBC with as well in terms of match coverage. And he said, you're doing a pretty good job. We like what you do. Do you want to do it for another season? I walked away thinking, okay, well, they're either being very kind or I'm doing something right. And I think that was really important for me in terms of self-evaluation and thinking, come on, you are okay at what you do. You're never going to make it to Radio 5 or the World Cup or whatever, but you're okay at what you do. And that was really kind of a huge boost for me, knowing that A, what I was doing was what they wanted, and B, that little batch of games where I was getting a lot of criticism from certain elements, and the way that I'd kind of overcome that was it's a huge positive for me. It's really difficult to do. I could have, as you quite rightly say, just sort of thought, right, okay, that's it. I'm going to knock it on the head and move on and just be under the parapet a little bit more rather than being above it in terms of my head. So I thought, okay, well, let's just keep the foot to the floor, keep doing what I'm doing, and try and fine tune what I do, how I deliver games of football, watch lots of games of football, try and up my knowledge and the way that I do things, and try and move away from the negative aspect of it, which still occurs, on occasion. But that was a big chapter turn for me in terms of that particular season. And the following year, the U's went on an absolute tremendous run. Were promoted back to the Football League, and that journey that the club went on at that time, we rode with them. As I was saying earlier, you ride that journey with them, and that was huge for my confidence, because the U's were winning pretty much every game that they turned up for. Won the playoff final at Wembley, and that was a massive kind of privilege for me. So in terms of confidence, delivering games of football, as I said earlier, when a team is winning, is far easier than when they're losing, and you've got to really observe and digest and pull apart a game in a lot more detail. So that following season where they got promoted and we enjoyed the ride immensely was huge for my confidence. And I've never really looked back since, to be honest. There's been one or two moments where I've struggled, when things haven't quite gone right in a game for me personally in terms of broadcast. But I had to kind of stop myself and think, no, don't beat yourself up. Don't be yourself. You're looking at one word or one sentence in a 4-hour broadcast, so stop it. So you tend to kind of brush it to one side a little bit more, and that comes through confidence, a bit of experience, and I guess knowing how to deal with people and criticism that may arise.
I think it's fascinating how often it is when you look back, and it's always those difficult periods that you look back on actually and realise that's what really transformed me. That's what really elevated my game. I'm sure if someone had offered you at that time when you kind of felt like that noise was really loud, if someone had offered you, do you want this all to just kind of like simmer down a little bit, settle down, you would have been, yeah, please, yeah, like let's just, but you would have then therefore just kind of stayed at the same level in terms of your confidence, your, like we spoke about, your self-talk, and probably even your standard in which you commentate and articulate on the radio. It's actually that kind of period of introspection that caused you to really G yourself back up, because sort of, drop your shoulders back, and you look back at it now, and it's actually what has really elevated your career, and you look back on that, and I'm sure you probably feel pride when you look back on that now, and you're thankful that you did stick with it, because you overcame those obstacles. You mentioned some tough periods over your career. By going through that difficult bit of adversity and overcoming those obstacles, what can you look back on and be like, yeah, that was a real highlight of my career? I mean, I can think of a few on top of my head, but what are the real high points in your journey so far?
So you mean in terms of particular days or periods or things that on a personal level that I've overcome?
Anything that springs to mind.
Right. Okay. I mean, obviously that what would be the second season that I was holding a mic, as it were, where I sort of overcome some of those sort of demons, which everyone kind of fights with a little. I think as individuals, we're not wired to immediately think of the positive things we've done. We're all fairly sort of humble, aren't we? Really, in terms of you don't think about what you've done thinking, I was amazing there, wasn't I? Absolutely brilliant. You always look back and think, I could have done that a little bit better, I could have done it. But that tends to kind of dilute over time, and that only comes with time. And you have to, I guess you just have, it comes down to having a bit of belief in what you do, really, and that doesn't always come naturally to us as human beings. We're always looking for the negatives at times. But yeah, certainly looking back, that first season after my initial one season period in the seat on a permanent basis was pretty incredible. I mean, the highlight of that was obviously the culmination of it all was covering a game of football at Wembley, and I mean, not many people have the chance to say they've done that, and we actually did it twice in that 1 year, which was pretty incredible. So the U's got to Cambridge United, that is, got to the final of the FA Trophy, and that was quite daunting actually, because I thought, we've covered some big games this season, the playoff semi-finals, etc., but you get to Wembley and you walk in the press area. It's the whole build up to the game itself. We were in a hotel, for a few hours beforehand, having a bit of food and a bit of a chat about the show and how it was going to unfold. And this is pretty cool. And then you get to Wembley, you go through the press doors, collect your passes, and you have a bit of food in there as well. And you walk out of Wembley into the press area, which is gigantic, absolutely gigantic. It's like all the press areas in all Division 4 or League 2 grounds put together. It's absolutely huge, and you kind of stand there and you think, oh, this is proper. This is proper. This is like something that not everyone gets to kind of do. And I'm here in my second full season doing this, And I remember that we did the build up to the show, and I kind of settled down a little bit. And as soon as the game kicked off, I was shaking. I was like, I cannot believe that I'm sat here, just Mr. Average Joe, holding a microphone, bringing a major final. I thought it was a major final. So Premier League fans, it wouldn't be a major final, but in terms of the level that we're covering, a major final at Wembley Stadium, like the most iconic stadium in the world, along with one or two others. But Wembley is just where, that's where everyone wants to play. And I am sat here, and I could hardly speak for the opening 10 minutes or so, which isn't great for someone that's on the radio, of course. But it was just, I was so nervous, but it was just a case of getting the first few lines out, getting yourself into a bit of a rhythm. Thankfully, Cambridge United won the game, and I walked away thinking, what an experience that I've just gone through. And I was really proud of myself to get to the point where, Mr. Average Joe had got to the point where he'd done something pretty good and, got a bit of praise for, which is incredible. And lo and behold, they went back 6 weeks later, as we did, and covered the playoff final, which they won. And to cover 2 games of football at Wembley, firstly, and secondly, for those games to be won by the side that you're actually covering on local BBC was pretty amazing. And that one day, May the 18th, 2014, when Cambridge United got promoted back to the Football League after 9 years in non-league, was special in terms of it, that the occasion itself, but to be a part of it in the way that I was just brilliant. I loved every moment of it. So that's right up there as a highlight. And there've been many since, obviously, with 2 further promotions, but that one day in particular will live with me forever, I think.
What advice would you give to yourself if you could go back to that time when you started sort of, transforming through your career? When you look back at it now, what advice would you give to the former version of yourself that was just starting out, or that was going through that difficult time, or even through the good times as well? What would stand out to you?
Yeah, so that's a difficult one, isn't it? Because you can give people the best advice in the world, but whether they take it on board, and whether in reality that is something that you can overcome or deal with is a different thing. But yeah, I think looking back, I think it'd just be really a case of just have confidence. Try and have confidence in what you do. Don't overanalyze everything you do in terms of the mistakes, and it goes back to what I was saying about you yourself as an individual having much more focus on something that's gone wrong, that's gone right. Don't overanalyze and focus on those things too much. You'll be worrying about it far more than anyone else will, in the main. You'll always get 1 or 2 people that want to pick up on every letter, every word, every sentence you say, but just don't over-analyse it. If you do, then you end up beating yourself up and tying yourself in knots and not being able to sleep at night, as was the case for me. So that would be the one big bit of advice, I think. Just try and have a bit of confidence in what you're doing. You're in that situation because someone wants you to be there. So that's big enough praise as it is. And it's difficult for us as human beings to accept praise and confidence and a big me up at times. But yeah, just don't beat yourself up too much when things go wrong, because in the end they'll go right, or you'll put systems and situations in place where you will get it right. Just look at it as a one-off, and just not try and overanalyze too much. We're all our own worst critics, which can be good at times because it's how you improve yourself as an individual, whether it's work, whether it's on a personal level. But yeah, don't overanalyze too much. That would be my one bit of advice, I think.
Yeah, I think it's something that I'm, really kind of searching into and trying to understand how to overcome. And I don't think you can really outthink your own mind in terms of when you're trying something new and you kind of overanalyzing yourself. I think just moving and taking action is just the way to do it. And I think just repetitions, just outworking that imposter syndrome is just the way that you overcome it. I don't think you can kind of sit there, really analyze and be really in your own head about it and overcome these thoughts that way. I just think movement, taking action, and just doing it again and again, and just learning as you go, like you mentioned before, just those little bits. If I can just get better every week, just every game? Can I just get a little bit better? Can I just add something, add a layer to my game? I think that's the way to do it. And yeah, I'm interested to know, Doug, you've worked with, alongside, interviewed countless people across your career. I'm interested to know who stands out as the best people that you've come across through the game on a personal level. You know, that could be someone that you work with. Obviously, you've certainly gone on a journey with Mark Johnson over the years, and you would have worked alongside, I'm sure, great people in the media and players, managers that you've interviewed. Who stands out to you?
Well, that's a great question, and of course, yeah, kind of worth kind of pointing out that my career, as you've mentioned, has developed a little bit to not only just being a co-commentator, summariser, part of a commentary team on a match day. I now do the post-match interviews and share pre-match press conference duties with another colleague during the week as well. So I do a lot of that, and obviously a show on a Monday where we pour through the detail of what's gone on a Saturday. So that's something new that's been added to my armour, as it were, in terms of confidence levels and that self-assessment in terms of the ability that I have to deliver something. And I'm thinking, well, if I was rubbish at what I did, they wouldn't be asking me to do this. And that was a real step forward. And it was another tool that I've used really to train my mind into ignoring some of the noise sometimes, really. But yeah, I certainly in interviewing people, whether it's post-match and whether it's pre-match press conference, two very, very different things in terms of the situation. One's high-fueled, adrenaline-fueled 5 minutes after a game's finished, and one is, 2 days before a game, everyone's very relaxed at the training ground and it's all fine, and everyone's got a little bit of perspective. 5 minutes after a game's finished, everyone's high on adrenaline and mind fuel. So you have to learn how to deal with those different situations. But you meet some amazing people. Neil Harris, who's currently head coach at Cambridge United, quite a complex character in terms of being very deep in the way that he thinks and works through things in his mind. I've had to get to know him sort of quite well. And a lot of that comes down to relationships. In fact, one of the best bits of advice I was given in terms of interview techniques, etc., was if it's someone you're going to speak to on a regular basis, build a relationship with them. Don't just go in cold and go, hello, whoever you're interviewing, what did you think about that match? Just build that rapport, build that relationship, get to know the person a little bit more. And that comes back to, I guess, one of my I think one of my slightly better strengths is being able to talk to anyone, interacting with anyone from any walk of life, any corner of the world. I'm fairly confident I'll be able to talk to someone, put them at ease, and have a decent conversation. And that's quite an important aspect of what I do, I think. But certainly, yeah, Neil's a great person to speak to. Firstly, some of the players that I've interviewed down the years. There's one particular player, Lyle Taylor, who was at Cambridge United for a short period of time. He's had an interesting career himself, Lyle. In fact, he has done and does now do a little bit of work in the media for 5 Live, etc. And again, a very deep thinking individual, and they're great people to speak with. So I did an interview with Lyle. I did a couple with him actually, but one was the first interview he'd done after the first match he'd played for Cambridge United. And so as an interviewer, you always want good content. People want to hear from the player or the manager, not me. They're not interested in what I'm saying. They're interested in what the player's got to say. But for me, it's about getting the best out of that individual that I possibly can. So I had a quick chat with Lyle beforehand. I thought, well, he's got a lot to say, this fella. But yeah, I think he's gone on his own journey. A lot of it, this and what we're talking about, is a journey, isn't it, really, Sam? And Lyle has gone through a lot in his life from a personal perspective, in terms of mental struggles, being rejected from certain clubs, and having situations at certain clubs where he's not quite seeing eye to eye with one or two players or coaching staff or people at the club, and he's had to really battle with that, and I think sort of discover who he is as a person. So some of the content that I got from him in that first interview was that I interviewed him 2 or 3 times after that, but that first interview was was probably the one off, if not the most enjoyable interview that I've ever done, because I've walked away thinking, wow, but some of the content we've got there is just brilliant, and I was quite pleased with myself in terms of, you know, how I delivered what I delivered to get the best out of him. And if you don't deliver something in the right way, then you don't get the best content. But it is fantastic when you get that level of kind of feedback from a player or a manager, regardless of whether they're nervous in front of a microphone, whether they're someone that is very much at ease or has a little bit of a backdrop of a story to tell themselves. But you have to be armed and ready to meet and speak with all sorts of different individuals. But yeah, it's been brilliant. The relationships that you forge with people when you're working in the media is pretty special, actually. You know, it's really nice to have that kind of level of relationship with so many different people. In fact, a lot of people now that are no longer at the club, I stay in touch with, and that's just testament, I think, really to friendships and relationships, full stop, that evolve as life goes by, really. But it's been a great opportunity, a great learning curve for me doing that aspect of what I do press wise.
There's many people, I'm sure, that would love to do what you do. Many people that are aspiring to get involved in the media. What would you say to them? I mean, you've highlighted a few things, I think, as in your early days of your career. I think, you know, being in the right place at the right time, putting yourself about, and what you just said now about having the ability to talk to anyone, I think is crucial. But if someone's looking to open some doors right now, they're looking for a career in the media, it's what they love, it's what they really want to do, what would you say to them about how to get involved?
There is an element of right place, right time, and I always kind of fall back to that. But you have to put yourself in that situation in the first place. So there's a skill in that, in terms of identifying situations, and I think it's really just, if you really want to do something, whether it's from that initial first meeting or building a relationship, or a bit further down, identify, you know, how are you going to maneuver yourself into situations where doors will open up for you. So it's just about speaking to the right people, getting to know the right people, and just being kind of forthright and assertive in impressing on people what you want to do. So we have a lot of individuals approach us at the BBC to say, look, I'm really interested in media. Is that something you can help with? I have countless people that text me or get in touch through social media and just say, look, you know, it's something I'm really interested in. How did you get into it? And my first port of call is thinking, firstly, well, that's great that they've got an interest, and they're interested and are enthusiastic enough to be able to approach me or approach one of my colleagues to say, look, I'm interested in this, can you help me? And I'll always go out my way to try and help people through a bit of work experience in that situation, or pass them on to a colleague who'll be able to take it a step further. But I guess the one bit of advice really is, if you're really keen, if you're really enthusiastic, speak to people. Put yourself in a situation where doors can perhaps open up for you. And it might not come naturally to those individuals, but you have to challenge yourself and challenge your own mind and think, if I really want something, then I've got to do something about it, rather than just waiting for something to come to me. So contact your local BBC, you know, get yourself in front of people that do what you want to do, or have a part in what you want to do. And that goes with any walk of life, really. You know, whether it's media, whether it's any profession, put yourself in a situation where, you know, doors can open up for you. And if you can do that, then you're not so much onto a winner, but you give yourself a much better opportunity, certainly.
Yeah, I saw someone say something earlier about get close to the sun, and I think it's very relatable to anything. You know, it doesn't have to. Yeah, it doesn't have to be just the media. You know, whatever walk of life you're looking to get involved in, I think getting close to the sun is so important, and that could just be literally anything. You know, that could, you know, they could buy a season ticket sitting next to you and just listening to you do it live and just taking notes, or, you know, someone just working in an office here or in an environment there, just making teas and coffees. Just get around those people that you want to be like, you want to learn from, and you'd love to live the life that they live. Get close to the sun, I think, is crucial. I think it's also important to understand as well, I mean, there's there's been some amazing videos of you on Twitter or X, as you might want to call it, of you celebrating a goal and a bit really animated. It might be that there was a goal mouth scramble, I think, the other week at Crew. That was just amazing. And someone might look at that video and be like, that looks really cool. That looks really entertaining. He's just the way that he's celebrating that goal in that moment. It's just, but there's a lot more to it. It's not it. The travel for one, the notes, the time, the late nights. Just tell us a bit about the full lifestyle of what you do, because I think it is very important, and I think it's important because you got to love it. I think to do anything to a high level and to do it for a living, you got to absolutely love it. And I think for you, it doesn't really feel like work because you love it, and you're always going to outwork somebody who's just doing it through willpower or discipline. You're going to outwork them because it doesn't even feel like work to you. So I'm interested to know in a bit of detail about the full lifestyle of being a commentator, of being a pundit for the BBC.
Firstly on the celebrations one, it's an intriguing one because I've looked at one or two of those. You look sort of from behind the sofa at times because you think, crikey, that's a bit, but when we first started doing it's like a pro-cam type bit of coverage that they set something up in the press box, and at given moments in the game something will happen and you'll get the reaction from that's real life kind of, and I think certainly in any local kind of BBC that they try to employ people that have a little bit of a connection with the local club, and it is really important not to be too biased towards that particular team because anyone could be listening in, but I think it adds something to a coverage, regardless of whether it's me or anyone else at local BBC. It adds something to the coverage, having that emotional connection. But there's still a line that you have to have in being respectful, professional. Hopefully, I'm on the right side of that, just about. But you have to be sort of relatively professional about what you do. You can't cross that particular line, and you do see it occasionally. But just have that emotional connection with the club, because I'm still on the terraces, as has Mark, as has most people working for local BBC, have either been a supporter or they've played for the club. And there's a lot of ex-players that do a lot of kind of summarising and work with local BBC. I know a lot of them, but just having that connection, I think, is really important. Sorry, I've rattled on. I can't remember your question. Oh, it was about the lifestyle. That was it, wasn't it? Yeah. So it's hard work, and I don't always think upon it as not being a job. It is a job because it's something I'm contracted to do, and I really enjoy what I do. But when I have a week where you have back-to-back games, and I do a press conference on Thursday, and you sit back on a Saturday night after everything's done, you might have a Tuesday game and then a Saturday game, and although you're thinking ahead to the next games, you're thinking, well, I've taken up pretty much all my lunch breaks in my day job this week to prepare for a game, prepare for a press conference, update stats, make sure I'm fully prepared for the game or the press conference or the interview that I've got coming up. There's that constant mind whirring, and this is why, as I was saying, it's important to have that end of season downtime where you don't think about it too much, because there's a lot to kind of absorb through the week. So it is that the lifestyle is, it can be busy, and it can take up a lot of your own private time, whether it's lunch break or of an evening. And I actually step back from you always have that self-evaluation of, am I doing too much? Is my brain becoming too cluttered? I always think of a mind as a box with some building bricks in it, and you can only get so many in. If you've got a couple that you can't get in the box, then there's something not quite right. So you have to get rid of them and only have what you can get in your mind in terms of those building blocks in a box. So I reevaluated at the end of last year, and I stepped back from doing all the articles for the Matchday programme for Cambridge United, and that freed up a little bit of space. But even then, I found it sort of pretty hectic. There's always something going on that you need to prepare for or digest and talk about on air or through your own mind. And it's important that you have that kind of off switch, which I get during the summer. But it's fairly non-stop, I think, is the lifestyle really. It's brilliant. I love every single moment of it. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing what I've been doing. The point that it would get to where I thought upon it as a chore, and it's like anything in life, if you don't like what you're doing, why do it? Why burden your mind and your body and your day-to-day life with something you don't really want to do? So you have to make harsh decisions, and you have to make adjustments in your life that sometimes don't feel right, but you have to look at the bigger picture, the longer term, and which is why I stepped back from doing one or two things at the end of last year. But it's pretty intense, week to week. But a very enjoyable ride, and say if I didn't want to do it or I didn't enjoy doing it, then I wouldn't be doing it. But as it stands at the moment, yes, it's hard work, but I get the results from it. I like to be fully prepared for games. I can't go into a game or a press conference or an interview with no backdrop of preparation. I always think if you don't prepare, you fail, and that's not a good place to be in, because that's when those imposter syndromes will pop up from behind the sofa again and start shouting at you. So I guess I don't want to be in that situation. I always prepare as much as I possibly can, and it may seem too much for some people and too intense, and I prepare a set of notes that I might look at 5% of during a game, but being prepared is my sort of comfort blanket, really, but it does take up a lot of time during the week, and obviously I have to balance my work and my home life as much as I possibly can, because my wife Paula needs some focus and attention, and I make sure that I have to make sure I get that kind of balance right, because there are things other than work that you have to concentrate on as much, and in fact more, majority of the time.
Yeah, and I think it gets to a point where we only have so much energy in our life. So I think you can work. There's obviously a level where you can work hard, but I think it's up until a point, and then we do just have an X amount of energy every day, and I think it's a case of selecting and prioritizing your energy levels and where you distribute those, basically. And it's I think it's interesting that you kind of took a step back from the writing to kind of put more energy and focus into the summarizing. And I think it's more about that selection rather than just trying to continuously load things on top and trying to get better and better and better and better. You can, but not in terms of just volume of work. And like you said, the downtime, very important as well.
Yeah. You burn yourself out, Sam, after a while, and no one wants to be in that situation, because if you burn yourself out, you don't perform to the level that you want. Your mind becomes tired, mentally, as well as your body being physically a little bit drained. So you just have to be kind of sensible about it, really, and think, well, I don't need to do everything. No one needs to do every single thing. Just deal with what you can deal with, but try and do it in the best way you possibly can. And that's from a self-assessment point of view. That's how you get the best out of your own being, really, I guess.
Especially if you want to do it for 15, 14 years. I heard you say on a couple of podcasts that it was the 11-12 season that you started, but I also read somewhere that it was the 12-13 season. 11-12.
Wow. Crikey, you can see my old brain.
Let's just go 14/15, shall we? Yeah.
Yeah, it was 11. No, 12. Sorry, you're right, Sam. Yeah, it was 12. I did things. I did quite a. I think I did 20-25 games during the 11-12 season.
Right.
12-13 was the first kind of full-time permanent, and I apologise to anyone listening or you if I've recited that incorrectly a little earlier in the pod.
Something that a lot of people may not know about you, Doug, but you've had quite a long career in agriculture, running simultaneously to your career in the media. Tell us a bit about that. What do you do in that sense?
Well, I mean, that's been a story in itself, really. So I've worked for a firm of property consultants since 2005. So I'm in my 21st year, and that's been a brilliant journey in itself. My previous career was in logistics and warehousing, which I did for about 18 years, something like that, here in Cambridge, where I live now, just outside of Cambridge, and up in London for 7 or 8 years. And that was my career, was warehousing, logistics. So even though I had that kind of media backdrop that I was very interested in, and did a bit of soul searching in terms of studying to take that further forward, but warehousing and logistics was always my thing. And I moved back to Cambridge with my wife Paula, and I was trying to. Sometimes you come to a bit of a crossroads in life and think, where am I going? I'm not sure I enjoy what I'm doing. I had one or two sort of episodes in my life from a work perspective that were very challenging indeed, and tested me fully as an individual, and that was really kind of difficult. And I just made the decision to take some time out of work, evaluate what I wanted from a day job in terms of career. And I made the decision, say, to take a bit of time out, look at what I wanted to do, and made the decision to try and work for a professional firm. When I say a professional firm, so a professional firm would be property consultants, solicitors, accountants, lawyers, etc., etc. So it's that kind of environment that I felt like I wanted to work in, because I thought it would be an interesting area to work in that I'd never worked in before. I wanted to see how the professional side of business, in terms of that industry, professional industry, unfolds. So I literally threw myself into the market, signed on to temp agencies, and one popped up one day, and said, look, there was a couple of weeks work going at the property consultants here in Cambridge. Do I fancy it? I thought, yeah, of course I do. 2 weeks ended up being 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and I've been there ever since. I don't think they've noticed, to be honest, but no, they've been brilliant for my career. I've had some challenges along the way with it, but yeah, as with anything in life, if you enjoy doing it and you identify the fact that there's something there that you have a real interest in, then you just put your foot to the floor and get out of it what you can, really. So I ended up getting a full-time job, having a lot of in-house training in terms of agriculture. When I say agriculture, it's arable farming, so not livestock, so sheep and cows and the like. So the agricultural side of it, in terms of management and consultancy, I've made a point of learning a lot about over the last 21 years, and I've been fortunate enough to work with people that have masses of experience, decades and decades of experience in that particular field of work, pardon the pun, and I've picked up all sorts of brilliant learning and education from along the way, to the point where I have a portfolio of clients now, and I serve them as best I can. And agriculture's moved on and touches on some of my other kind of passions, really, which is the environment, ecology, and looking after our planet, which is so very precious these days, and farming plays a big part in that, really. So it's a journey that I do, and I have really enjoyed and continue to enjoy, really, and it's a good. It means my life is very busy, but it's a good off switch to what I do from a media perspective, and the media perspective is a good off switch from what I do in terms of my day job. So the two go hand in hand very, very well. But it's an industry I really enjoy, because it means I work with local landowners that play, as I say, a big part in the environment and the ecology, and trying to improve that. Farmers don't always get the best press at times, which in some way is understandable, but it needs understanding by so many more people in this country. But I love it. It means I'm out and about quite regularly, and I get involved in designing and putting in place environmental schemes that improve the countryside around us and the ecology within it. So it's something I really kind of embrace, and it's a big passion of mine.
How's the agriculture scene changed since you began?
A lot. Nothing ever stands still, Sam, does it? In any industry, really. But it's moved on, really, I guess, from being what we call intensely farmed in terms of the land around us. So it isn't just these days about growing wheat, barley, oilseed, rape, whatever you grow, linseed, any crop that you may grow, and literally that's the one aim on your farm is to provide food, and that is really, really important. But I guess over the last 20 years, it's developed more into farmers and landowners recognising their recognising their importance in ecology and the environment. So now 99 out of 100 farmers these days will concentrate more on that aspect, and realise actually that they play a big part in protecting wildlife. So all farms, as in 99 out of 100, will have environmental schemes in place, and focus a lot more on that side of farming than they did 20 years ago. So as well as producing wheat for bread and barley for your beer and your whiskies, etc., is that you give a little bit back, because the world of farming, as I said previously, doesn't always get the best of press, because to produce food you've got to grow crops, and to grow crops you need things like fertiliser and chemicals to be able to enhance that crop to the level where it's suitable for food. So yeah, there's been a big focus on using less chemicals, using less fertiliser or harmful fertilisers where you can, just to ensure that you're doing what you can to stay on the right side of being environmentally aware, ecologically aware, whilst always having environmental schemes in place that enhance the wildlife and bring in pollinators, etc., and just enhance the wildlife around you, as well as being able to produce food. So that's been a big shift, certainly, in agriculture over the last 20 years, and one that I really applaud.
I think it's fairly obvious with the football that it's the love of the game that drives you with that. What drives you with this sense? You mentioned it's something you're passionate about. To do anything for 20 plus years consistently, you've got to have a driver somewhere. What is it that you are passionate about and that drives you in this aspect of your life?
Firstly, it's doing a good job. I like if I do something, I like to do it well, really. And yeah, I'll never do anything I try not to do anything too half-hearted. Otherwise, what's the point? You go into something, and if you invest in what you're doing, you want that full investment back in terms of return. And I really enjoy delivering things for clients, like an environmental scheme, or giving a bit of advice on something, whether it be environmental, whether it be the crops. I really enjoy that aspect of my work, getting something back from the investment that I apply. And first and foremost, when it's environmental and from an ecology perspective, something that delivers something back, I get a big kick out of that. There's no better situation to be in where you design and put an environmental scheme in place, and you go out to visit a farm, and you've gone through the process of designing that scheme, working with those on the ground to try and deliver what they're delivering, and you walk out and there's, I don't know, a 2 hectare in old money for some folk that would be about 5 acres of land that's full of wildflowers. You see bees and butterflies buzzing around everywhere, and you think, I've played a part in that happening. I'm helping this area of the country enhance its wildlife and its ecology, and giving something back. And there's not enough of it goes on in the world, and I get a real kick out of that, certainly. And as well as all the conversations that happen with people along the way, it comes back to what I was saying about getting on with people and relationships. People like people. People always gravitate towards people that they like and that like them, and you're going to get good conversation from and learn something from, and experiences. And I really like being out there talking to people that I really want to talk to and work with. And I guess it just comes back to what I said a little earlier about those relationships and having the ability to get on with people from all walks of life. I find it bonkers sometimes that as human beings, as the years go by, you can talk to so many different people, and you'll always find something that's a bit of common ground, and you always look for that common ground sometimes in terms of relationships and building friendships with people. So I find it odd that I could be one evening speaking to Neil Harris after a game of football about a 1-0 win at the Abbey, and then literally 12 hours later I'm sat in a farmhouse kitchen talking to a landowner about an environmental scheme that he's going to implement on his farm, and how we're going to work through that and why he wants it, and then partake little bits of advice and knowledge. And you drive home and you think, that's nuts that you've talked to different people from completely and utterly different walks of life, but you've had the ability to do it, and you've had the experience in life to be able to have those different conversations. So I get a real kick out of, I think, forging those relationships and those contacts, and just enjoying sort of communication, really. I think interaction is something that I think is something that's, I worry in life is being lost a little bit with the implementation of AI, which I'm not so much suspicious about, but I worry that it's going to replace too much our human instincts and our human creativity. and the way that we go about life. That worries me a little bit. So to come from an age where, you know, you pick up the phone, you sit in front of someone and have a conversation, that's my way of doing things, and I really enjoy that, and I get concerned as time goes by that's being lost on people, the lack of creativity, lack of interaction, because that's what we're all here for. We're all designed to speak and engage with people, aren't we?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really powerful listening to you talk about both of these kind of halves of your life, really, and you've managed to create a life that is filled with doing things that you enjoy doing and that you are genuinely passionate about. That's not necessarily easy to do, and that's not necessarily common either. I want to talk to you about your traveling experiences. So, okay. As I understand, you when you were younger, before the agriculture, before Cambridge United, you used to work a job which probably wasn't too fulfilling, or you weren't particularly passionate about at the time, but you would work for 6 months, save up a lot of money, and then go travelling for 6 months. And I feel like, when would this have been? 80s, would it be?
Yeah, I left school in 1985, Sam.
Right, yeah. So travelling's become a lot more common, I think, and a lot more popular, especially sort of in the places that you travel to, which is great. I think it really is amazing and really powerful to go travelling. But you were doing it then, and I think I'm interested to know about those experiences you had, and perhaps were they a catalyst to, you mentioned soul searching before, and you had a bit of a period in your life where you were not quite sure where you were going, what you were doing, who you were. Do you think travelling helped with that, and if so, how?
Oh yeah, hugely, Sam. I think about the years, even though it's many years ago now, and you're right, we can travel a little easier these days and jump on a plane and go here, there, and everywhere. You know, whether it's a European city break or other side of the world, it's an amazing thing to do. Not everyone does it, as you say, but it is a little easier these days with communication, the internet, and how things have opened up, and just the ease of the way we can do things. It's hugely important and hugely life-changing in terms of experience. And you're right. I mean, I was kind of bumbling along, you know, as you very often do when you first leave school, and I was thinking, well, I've got a pay packet here, that's great, isn't it? I'll give my mum and dad 20 quid, 10 quid for rent, whatever I was giving them at that particular point. I've got this big packet of cash, I can go and buy records with it, and I can go out on the razzle with my mates every Friday and a Saturday night, and a Sunday and a Thursday sometimes. So, but that's your first kind of real independent kind of throws in life, is that couple of years. But after a couple of years, I thought, two things really. Firstly, where am I sort of going with it? You're right. I was working, you know, on production lines, working in warehouses, shuffling things around. Nothing jobs in terms of a career. Literally nothing. It was just it served a purpose, but that was it really. It was just putting money in my back pocket. And as kind of time went by, the people that I was spending time with, some of the people I was spending time with, I just thought, are they my kind of people? Is it really? Are they my people? Do I have the same interests? Do I have the same common ground? Perhaps not. And I was fortunate enough along the way to do a little bit of work with a business where there was a chap working there who I became kind of very friendly with, and you know, we used to go out for a beer and do this, that, and t'other, and you know, it was all fairly nice. And he was travelling at the time from Australia. Anyway, so yeah, I got to know him, had a beer, etc. Anyway, so a little bit further along the line, I started working for a business that fitted air conditioning, ductwork, and the like. And lo and behold, the person that I'd worked with in the stores or the warehouse was actually lodging with the guy that I was working with the air conditioning business with. So we all went for a beer one night, and I was like, "What are you doing here? What are you doing here?" Just bizarre. It's that sliding doors moment. I mean, in what world does that kind of thing happen? Coincidence? It's just crazy. And as I said to you before, I'm always absolutely fascinated by it. So he said, "Well, I'm going back to Australia at some point. Why don't you boys come out and stay with me for a little bit. So, it's Australia. Well, that's nuts. That's miles away. I've never been out of the country, let alone to Australia. So myself and a chap called Paul, who I was working with at the air conditioning company, started saving money. We worked every hour that God sent, literally 7 days a week. I was working all sorts of hours, and we were travelling all over the country, but because I was living at home, it was easy to save. We jumped on a plane and went to Australia. It was interesting because I kept saying to my mum and dad, I'm going to go travelling and I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and they were like, oh yeah, well we'll see, dear. But the closer it got to reality, the more I think it dawned on them that I was actually going to do it. And I went away and never looked back really. I went to Bali for 3 weeks and had an amazing time. Went to Australia for 6 months or however long it was. Another 3 weeks in Bali on the way home. Travelled through various parts of Australia and all over Bali and met some incredible people. And that opened my mind up to what I keep coming back to in terms of relationships and friendships and people liking people, and our natural instinct as human beings to be interactive. It's really important. And of course, travelling, you'll know yourself, Sam, you meet all sorts of people and you open your mind up to different experiences and different ways of life, different religions, different ways of living, and it's absolutely played a big part in my life, I think.
Yeah, well, I think just the clarity on understanding who you are just increases so much, because if you don't go anywhere new, then your sample size of what you can stand yourself up against is just a lot more narrow. So you don't have as much kind of like results or comparisons to make or patterns to recognize from yourself. Oh, this is kind of this and that, and then you go somewhere new. Oh, actually, like, I think I like this. I seem to gravitate more towards this, and especially traveling sort of in a smaller group or on your own. I think it really, like I said to you the other day, I think sometimes when you're in the same place, you can feel like you're in the middle of a jungle, and it's quite difficult to kind of see where the right paths are or the path to get out. But traveling kind of feels like you kind of get helicoptered out of it, and you can then see it from a bird's eye view, and then you can see the path out really, really easily.
And having that kind of broader aspect in terms of your thinking, rather than I don't want it to sound like it's people that haven't travelled haven't had that experience. Well, they haven't, but it's just opening your mind up to how different people live, different people's way of thinking, and doing it in a different country with completely different people that might not be able to speak the language too much, and have a completely different set of idealisms and different set of religious paths that they go down. I think it just helps you get perspective in terms of what you want to do and what sort of person you want to be, and just gives your mind that kind of openness to know that there's not always one path. There are always different paths. And I think if you learn as many of those paths as possible, then it gives your options a little bit more of a wide aspect in terms of what you want to do going forward. I don't know if that kind of makes any sense, but it just broadens the mind. I think that's what it comes down to. And it gives you a better platform to make decisions in your own life, I think.
Yeah, and it puts you in a different frequency, and it kind of removes it feels like it kind of removes the outside noise a little bit, and then you can kind of, when you go on holiday, even for a week, and it kind of feels like your thoughts kind of catch up with you a little bit, and you can, it almost feels like you can view your life back home from a different perspective. It kind of feels like you're looking at it from that bird's eye view, and that's just a holiday for a week. And I just feel like if you're able to go traveling for just a bit longer, even if it was just, I went traveling last year for 10 weeks, and that done, a lot for me. And then since then I've gone other places and been away for longer, and I just think I know you're a big advocate for travel, and I just think it's a really, really powerful thing to do, and especially when it comes to understanding who you are, and it kind of gives you that perspective on knowing which paths are actually available. Until you see other paths, you don't really know they're there, or you don't think they're realistic. So no, really, really interesting, really really powerful. So do you feel like that's then when you came back, do you feel like you were a different person? Do you think that kind of helped you navigate where you wanted to go?
Yeah, I think so, because when you're travelling, you use the analogy about, whether it's on your own or whether it's with a group of people, but you're there because you want to be there. You've chosen to travel, and when you're travelling, you choose to speak to the people that you want to speak to, that you know that you'll learn new experiences from and have opened your mind up a little bit more. In terms of just sometimes it's a little tidbit, having a conversation in a bar with someone over a beer, or someone you sit in a hotel lobby with, or on the beach or on a sun lounger, that you'll sit and have a conversation with for 5, 10 minutes, 2 hours, and you'll take little tidbits from that and think, I remember him saying that, and you apply that to your own kind of life skill, and you wouldn't have that if you hadn't travelled. So I think it's a situation where I came back having my mind blown by what's out there and what goes on that I literally had no idea of, in terms of different people, different ways of life, different cultures in different areas of the world, and that's always really kind of stuck with me. And I think it helps you have a bit more of an open mind, and also for me the one big thing was be with people that you want to be with. Don't sort of force yourself to be in situations with people that you might certainly don't have that common ground with, but don't kind of force the situation, and just go down the path of doing what you want to do rather than what you don't want to do, and you'll learn that by the experiences of travelling. I don't know if that makes any kind of sense, but yeah, I came back from my first stint away thinking I know the kind of people that I gravitate towards now, and there's no point in forcing an issue and spending time with people that might be really nice people, but that not my kind of people.
Yeah, I think there's a good chance that there's quite a strong correlation between you doing that and having those travelling experiences to then living a life full of doing things that you want to do and that you enjoy doing and that you love doing. Because I feel like that, like you said, the broadening of your mind and the horizon almost kind of makes you realise there's so many different paths I can walk, and there's so many different things that I can do. I'm not restricted to doing something that I don't want to do. You don't have to live your life doing things you don't want to do. And I think that those diverse experiences that you did have probably put you in quite good stead to be confident enough, and also a refusal to just not live a life that you don't enjoy.
No. Take risks as well. Take risks. I'm not saying stand on the edge of a cliff and think, oh, I'm going to fall, playing the game of chicken. But everything you do in life is a risk, isn't it? Really, there's always a risk element to it. It's like when we finish this podcast, I'll get up and walk down the stairs. I might fall down the stairs, but I've taken a risk walking down. Everything in life is a risk, and 9 times out of 10 you'll get a reward for it. Some people take more risks than others. Some are risk averse. I'm quite risk averse, but in life you don't get out of it what you perhaps should or you want to if you don't take that element of risk. Sensible risks at times. It's like starting a new job's a risk. Meeting someone you've never met before is a risk to an extent, I guess, or going down a different route in terms of your work is a risk. Deciding to travel is a risk because anything could happen, but I think you have to be brave as an individual to realise could be something really good at the end of the road, so take the risk and go for a walk.
And even if you don't, quote unquote, succeed objectively, so if you try something new and it doesn't pay off in terms of its sort of like visual outcome, I still think that the growth that you get from making a mistake, stretching yourself, pushing yourself, so that you can then actually, it does broaden your mind. You put yourself out of your skin a little bit, and you learn so much from it. So even if you don't feel like you've succeeded objectively, you're still actually growing and learning so much from taking that risk, which is then going to give you results that you can't perhaps see quite as clearly, but that's going to compound over time as you get older.
Yeah, spot on. Someone once said to me, there's no such thing in life as a bad experience. That might sound a little bit odd, but when you think back, and it picks up on what you said about experiences. Sometimes experience in life is a good thing, or it's happened through something that's been kind of challenging. But the trick is to come out of that experience having learned something. It goes back to what I was saying about my change in career back in 2005, I decided to move away from one career and move into another from a day job perspective, and that was a kind of big risk. And it came off the back of a bad experience, but I came out of that experience thinking I'm never going to do that again, or I'm never going to put myself in a situation where that happens again. And yeah, it just, I think you're right. You learn something from every experience, whether it's good or at the time seems bad. If you come out of it with something positive that you can apply going forward, then it's almost perverse. It's like a bad experience is a good experience. Don't know if that makes any sense, but you know where I'm coming from.
Yeah, definitely, because it's like, even if you think, God, that's something I never want to do again, that's a positive outcome, because you've removed that, you've tried that trail, and it's not where you want it to go, and you kind of get quite a bit of peace of mind of brushing those aside. Otherwise, you can just feel like there's a million options and you don't know which one to go for first. But the elimination of it can bring you quite a lot of peace, and that. That perspective that you have of it, I think, is just absolutely everything in life. I mean, it's my first tattoo that I got on my arm. It's not the events that happen in our lives, it's the meaning that we take from it. And I just think that is absolutely everything. You know, two people can go through the same situation and come out with two completely different mindsets and viewpoints on it. And the older I get, the more I see, I just feel like that is, just the number one thing that you can try to work on, and that's going to improve your life. I'm not expecting you to put your whole life funneled into one thing, Doug, but if there is one core virtue that you continuously try to live by, obviously in your media, in your day job, in your marriage, in your social life, what is it that you try to live by, if you could choose one thing?
Be nice to people. And treat people and interact with people, whether it's speaking to them direct, email, telephone. Speak to them as you would like to be spoken to, and have that level of respect. So I always think that's a really good tool. You're not going to get on with everyone, but you can try, can't you? You can try and get on with people. Just try and be nice to people. There's too many people in the world that are not nice in the slightest. And I've always, and I think I get this from perhaps my mum and my grandparents before this. Just try and be a good person. Try and be someone that is nice to folk. There's nothing more soul destroying than in life to have someone speak to you like crap, or send you a shitty email, or do something that makes you feel bad. There's no worse trait than being an individual that has that level of sort of persona or platform. So just try and treat people and interact with people in the way that you would wish to be interacted with if it comes back the other way. So one of the things that I often do, and I don't know how this kind of relates, but very often if I have to send an awkward or a difficult email to someone, or deliver something that's kind of tricky, I tend to, if it's an email for instance, I'll tend to type it, and I know it's a little bit awkward and I've got to tread in the right sort of way, but I'll type the email, leave it in draft, and then the following day I'll open the email up before I send it and reread it, and you can guarantee there's always something that you will change, because you'll read it and you think, oh right, okay, if I was the person receiving that email, how would I feel? How would I put yourself in that person's seat? And I'll always change something, and I will never ever regret kind of taking that step. It's something I did some years ago now, because I got a bit of bad feedback on an email that I'd sent, and I thought, okay, what do I do with that? So I thought I'll try the overnight test, as I call it, and you just apply a system that works for you, and yeah, it seems to. And that's I'm just using the email as an example, but yeah, just try and be a good person, try and be a nice person, and someone that won't won't be walking away from the situation with someone over their shoulder saying, "Well, he was a bit of a twat, wasn't he?" Just just make them walk away thinking, "Oh, he's all right, isn't he?" And because we all want to be accepted in life, don't we? That's what we want, to be accepted in life, and just for people to think, "Oh, he's an all right fella," or "She's a nice girl," or whatever. Just always, you always want to leave a good impression on people, and I think that's what I've always kind of strived to do, really. I don't know if that sort of resonates with you or anyone else, Sam, but that's always been quite a sort of principled thing for me, really.
Yeah, definitely. And I think even if it doesn't feel reciprocated in the moment, often you can kind of feel there's an injustice in the world. Sometimes you can be nice to someone and it feels like it gets chucked back in your face. But I think in the long run, it always improves your life, and it always will come back to you. I do really believe that, even if you might go through 10 conversations in a row and it doesn't feel like it, but in the long run, it really does drastically improve your life. Just having, oozing positivity and just having that great energy about you and being kind to people, I think it does always come back. And even if it doesn't come back, you have that confidence and that pride in yourself, knowing that you carried yourself that way. Doug, let's bring this one into land. Where can people follow what you do?
Cool, blimey. Okay. The usual social media stuff. So I'm on X, formerly Twitter, of course, which I've considered coming off once or twice before, because it can be an evil world, the world of social media at times, but it can be a very good platform. So I am on X, at Doug Shulman. And the handle, if it's called that, on Instagram is exactly the same, at Doug Shulman. So you'll find me on those two platforms. They're the only two platforms that I tend to kind of reside on these days. That's where you can find me from a social media perspective, certainly.
Well, Doug, I think you're great. Keep up everything you're doing. Obviously, we look forward to tuning in for the new season. I'm sure it's going to be an interesting one. On a personal level, I view in the upper echelons of top blokes, mate. So thank you. I really appreciate it.
Much, well, I'm looking forward to embracing hearing about your journey going forward and more of these podcasts, Sam, as well. I think what you're doing is a brilliant thing, and life can be overanalyzed at times, but it's important that it is analysed. So I'm looking forward to hearing a little bit more about yours as time goes by.
Thanks, Doug. Until next time.
Cheers.